Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 93. Hello, everyone. It's Elise Seifert here, joined with John Webster. What's on your mind, John?
One of the hardest topics I'm finding to talk to people about, either on interviews or even just for what's on your mind, is intellectual wellness. One of my favorites. And my thinking there is that intellectual wellness isn't an IQ test. It's just exercising your mind, and there's lots of ways to do that, from reading, playing games, and all that. I did find an article that I sent to you by CBC, Train Your Brain, 4 exercises that will keep your mind sharp, and it was posted November 24th, and I thought it'd be fun to go through this.
Okay, I love a good challenge.
Okay, so I'm actually going to say what the test is, and you are set up to try these out, these 4 tests.
Yes.
Good luck. The first one is called a color test, and it's going to be pretty hard for radio, for podcast, but imagine a square with a whole bunch of written colors. So it says red, green, blue, but it's in a different color. That where it says red, it's in green text. Where it says green, it's in yellow text. And what it says is try to say the color, not the word, as fast as you can. And the exercise makes you smarter by working both sides of your brain. Your right brain wants to say the color. Your left concentrates on saying the word. And the better you are at doing this, the better you are at juggling both sides of your brain.
Okay.
So if you want to at home, just look for this article or else just prepare this one yourself. So Elise, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Why don't you start reading them and see how fast you can go?
Here we go. Green, yellow, white, pink, orange, blue, red, yellow, green, blue, red, blue, green, red, pink, blue, yellow, pink, green, orange, red, blue, orange, red, green. Oh.
Yeah, so I feel like because you were slowing down, you must have practiced a few times. You knew the first ones.
The first row, actually, I think where it really tricks me is when it has the written color right after I said that color.
Oh, right.
So, for example, in the top row, it has yellow in pink font, and then it has the word pink in orange font. So when they have that color that I just said, I don't know why, for whatever reason, my brain goes, what? What are you doing? So I found that really challenging. My instinct is to want to read. So I guess that's my left
mine
brain.
is the color. Like when I see the color, I want to say the color.
My instinct is to read the word.
Okay.
So I guess I need to work more of my right brain side is what it's telling me.
All right, so let's try the next one. This is a blindfold test. We're not going to have a blindfold. You're going to have to close your eyes. But it says, have a friend blindfold you and place random everyday objects in front of you. Touch, feel, and smell the objects to see if you can determine what they are. I can tell you that smelling isn't going to help with any of these, just so you know.
It's not going to help?
No, so
okay.
It's just a touch thing.
Okay.
And the quiz is focused on your sense of touch. When other senses like sight are taken away, our brain's dependency on touch becomes much greater. And when objects react to your skin, the largest sensory organ in the body, receptors are triggered that send nerve impulses to your brain, telling you what the object is. Without the help of your other senses, your perception of the objects you're feeling changes as your frame of reference to the object has been limited. Okay, so some of these are kind of familiar objects, so close your eyes and I'll give you the first one.
Okay, I'll put my palms out. This, it feels like a screw, like metal. I'm wondering actually if it's a door stopper.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Good call.
I can
it's
feel the
little
coil.
thing that goes, the coil that goes on the wall to stop a door.
Okay.
Here's a bizarre one. See if you can figure this one out.
Okay, I'm feeling rubber and something pointy on the end. Oh, I'm not sure.
You won't get this one.
Oh, no.
I'll take it. This one is one of those caps for a wine bottle, you know, where you pump the air out.
I see. Okay.
So it's a wine cap. Okay, here's another one. And you can use 2 hands if you want. Just don't hit the mic.
Okay, this is a deck of cards.
Exactly.
I've held many of those.
And one more.
I think that this is a chess piece.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good job. So you only kind of were a little stumped for a little while in the first one.
That's right. Actually, I've been to a restaurant called Au Noir.
Right.
And it's completely pitch black. And you order beforehand and then you go in and you eat. And you can't see anything. And it's amazing how different it tastes without being able to see it. So that reminded me of that experience. Yeah,
I was looking, and we'll come to this another day, but one of the intellectual wellness training your brain exercises is trying to identify food. with your
Okay.
eyes closed. So that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is non-dominant handwriting. So are you right-handed or left-handed?
I am right-handed.
Okay, so you would have to write with your left hand.
Yes.
Experts say using your non-dominant hand helps your brain to better integrate its two hemispheres. Research shows that musicians who use both hands have about a 9% increase in the size of their corpus callosum, the part of the brain that connects the two hemispheres. So using both hands can likely create more transfer between the hemispheres of your brain, which in turn can benefit your intelligence and ability to process information. Okay, you've got a piece of paper in front of you, you've got a pen. What can you do?
I'm going to try to write my name. I think the hardest part for me right now is how do I hold the paper down typically when I just write with one hand? Okay. I'm wondering if my
Well, hang on a second. You're printing. Why don't you try doing cursive?
cursive. Okay, so I printed the first two letters of my name. I'm going to try to do a cursive one.
Not bad, not bad.
Not bad. I do have to write upside down a lot with my students because I am the way that I'm at their desk or at my U table, I'll have to write upside down.
So you print it?
I print a lot upside down, but not with my non-dominant hand.
Well, I don't think there's much we can do on podcasts for what we're getting out of this, but how does that at least feel?
I have to think more.
Okay.
When I'm writing with my dominant hand, I definitely can just go off how it feels. So I do have to put a lot more effort into it. But when you were talking about music, I do play the piano and the guitar. So I wonder if that helps.
Well, it is interesting. So I think what this is suggesting, though, is that you should do this regularly if you actually want to make more connections between the two hemispheres.
Right.
I can't imagine that, like why I would do it, but maybe we can incorporate it into kind of like an exercise where once a week you do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe once a day.
Sounds like a good challenge.
The next one I'm interested in seeing, it's called a mirror star trace. So imagine this, people, a star, but there's both an inside and outside line. So it's kind of like a thin edge to the star between two lines. And the idea is you hold the star up to a mirror. You're looking in the mirror, but you're writing on the paper and you're trying to stay between the lines. And it says, this mirror tracing activity is a visual and motor test that involves learning a new motor skill. Studies have shown that right-handed people will take longer to complete the task with their right hand. Your right hand is controlled by the left hemisphere of your brain, so the reflection of the star in the mirror confuses all the signals in your brain, as they're different than what it's accustomed to. Left-handed people are better at this exercise as their brains are generally a bit more bilateral.
Interesting.
Okay. So Elise just happens to have a mirror behind her, so she's going to look in the mirror and try and stay in the lines. And she's going, and she's outside the lines, and she's coming back in, and she's in it. She's going. How are you feeling it?
It's really tricky. I think I keep wanting to go the wrong way, naturally, of course, because I'm looking into a mirror. I'm going to keep trying. I'm hoping that my makeup experience helps me with this one.
Okay, try one more time. Now she's going towards the bottom. It looks like when she's going straight across, it's easier, but when she has to go on the angles, it's a lot harder.
The angles are really tricking me here.
Okay, that's good enough. So anyway, I do like the idea of exercising the mind. It's a good idea, I think, to poke around. There's other things we'll cover that are standard: reading, playing games, that kind of stuff. But see if you can't find either social media posts or articles, and try and find a way to do a little mind exercise every week. Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Hi, it's John Webster, and this is part 2 of our interview of Shayne Corson. We'll start with a recap from part 1 and then head into the part 2 interview.
Actually, I suffered with it on my own for years. I didn't actually mention anything to anybody until I actually left the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2003. So I had suffered with it from early on, just after my dad's death in 1993. So I actually hid it for almost 10 years before I even told one person. Oh man, it was like, it started with anxiety, and then I started getting depressed and having depression and going through different things, and just snowballed over the years. My panic attacks went from having one every couple days, every 3-4 days, to every couple days to having a panic attack every day, and then feeling like I was in a panic attack daily. And I started feeling like I was in a dark hole, was never going to be able to get out of that dark hole. And I thought the only way out was to kill myself. And I was having thoughts of killing myself on a daily basis. I still hadn't reached out for help at that point. I was just being embarrassed and scared and shy to tell somebody that I was suffering with mental health, because it was quite a stigma back in the day, and it still is to this day. And I was also afraid of losing my job. I mean, that's how I made my livelihood, is playing hockey. I knew I needed to get the help. And when I first left the dressing room, and my mom was at the game actually, and she always met me outside the Wise room, and I just said to my mom, I need help. I've been going through a lot of different things mentally and health-wise, and having some very bad thoughts about killing myself, and I can't do it anymore. And she said, oh, that's great. Let's find the help you need. And that's something that you have to, why you need a good team around you and a good support system around you to figure that out, because you're not going to be able to do that on your own. I certainly wasn't able to do that on my own. If I wouldn't have got the proper help and the right people around me, like I said, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
I personally also have times where I feel anxious or sometimes depressed or sometimes down. It's not as acute for me as it is for some, but I still feel it. In my own personal experience and personal journey, I found that physical exercise is a tremendous help to my mental health. So I realize it's not a one size fits all, but for you, do you find that physical exercise, working out, that type of stuff helps you with your mental health?
Well, 100%. I mean, when I work out, to be honest, I feel 100% better. And it just seems to get my mind not spinning like it is when I'm not working out. The worst time for me is, that, oddly enough, is when I go to bed at night, because I'm sitting there thinking about everything, and my head's spinning, and I'm thinking about too many things, and I can't sleep. And then it's like a vicious cycle. It got worse and worse and worse. And that's most of the time, that's when my panic attacks would happen, when I was in bed at night thinking about everything. But physical exercise definitely helps me. It's something that I've done all my life and try to continue to do because of that. I mean, there's lots of different things that people look at doing, but for me, it's like exercise. I love music, so I like to relax and listen to music on my own at some points, and work on my breathing a bit. When I'm laying there listening to music, it just relaxes me, and I'm listening to the songs and the words in the songs, and not thinking about all my issues that I got going on in my life. And listen, everybody has things that go on in their lives, and they have issues, and it's just a way of managing them and figuring out how to deal with them properly, and not overthink it. Always be having your brain spinning 1,000 miles an hour thinking about them. So you need to take a break from life. And my way of doing that is to get on the bike and ride the bike, or do some push-ups and sit-ups, or listen to some music and do some breathing. And another technique I was taught that, and it's one of the things that really helps me a lot, is that, I lost my dad in 1993. And like I said, we've never really dealt with his death properly. We never even buried him. He's still sitting on my mom's mantle because she doesn't want to put him in the ground yet. So that's another situation we'll have to deal with when my mom's gone. And hopefully that's not for a long time from now. But Dr. Shaw taught me something. Just pick a place that you really like, that relaxes you and you feel good, and go sit there and relax a bit and talk to your father. I mean, you can still talk to him and think about all the great memories and all the great times you had. And that helps me too, because then again, it stops my mind from running and thinking about what's going on in my life right now, and just focuses on my dad and all the great times I had and the great memories I had. And then when I listen to music, same thing. I'm listening to tunes and thinking about the music and the words and the song, and not worrying about everything else that's going on in the world right now, because the world's a scary place, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that can put a lot of negative thoughts in your mind. And then working out, same thing. You get on the bike, and all I'm focused on the bike, or working out, is trying to get through the workout and getting a good sweat in. So that's why I like doing those things that I do, is it just gets my mind off the what's going on in the world, because it's always on top of you because of social media and TV and things like that. So you need to take a break from that, and your phones are always at your hips. So you have to take a break from all those things, and that's what I try to do by doing those things.
You just reminded me, art is a big point of wellness for me as well, and listening to music. And I can remember back in the days of albums, especially as I was younger, high school or university, if something terrible happened, I'd go downstairs, throw on an album, and that would kind of carry me away. So thanks for letting us know about a lot of those coping mechanisms that work for you. Now you've gone through this and you've learned a lot in the process. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, so before you reached out for help, what advice might you give yourself as your younger self, even say before you started your NHL career?
That's pretty easy for me. Like I said, the very first time I felt like I was starting to feel a little bit better was when I actually walked out of that dressing room in Toronto, here in Toronto, for the Toronto Maple Leafs during the playoffs, which I love the game of hockey and I love playoff time. And it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But when I did that was when I first felt somewhat better and that I had some hope. And honestly, when I did that and then actually went and talked to somebody, started talking about what I was going through, I felt 50% better already. I knew there was a battle ahead of me and there was a lot of things I needed to do to get to a point where I wanted to live a normal life, and I was going to have to deal with it day to day. But to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, you know what, there's hope and I know I can do this. And, you know, I don't want to kill myself. I want to live a long life and I want to have as normal life as I can, was when I left and started talking about it. And I would tell somebody that, you know, you can't do this on your own. It's okay not to be okay though. And there is emotions. There are going to be days where you're going to be depressed and down and feeling a little bit anxious, but there are mechanisms, there are coping skills that you can find and have, and there are doctors and there are support groups that can help you with that. So my advice to anybody that was going through something like this, go get the professional help you need, and don't be embarrassed about it. Don't feel bad about it. It's not a weakness. It's mostly strong people that suffer with anxiety and panic attacks, and people that care a lot because they worry about things and they go over and over things in their minds. So don't feel like you're a weak person or be embarrassed. Go get that help, make that first step, and you'll see that it'll help you a lot just by doing that. And then things will just snowball the other way. Instead of snowballing downward, you'll start getting a snowball that's going uphill, and it can happen. And there is hope out there. And there are groups and support groups out there. And as you mentioned, I mentioned earlier, if it doesn't happen right away, don't get down. Because like I said, when I went to the first doctor, I said, I'm not doing this again. So I'm going to have to do this on my own somehow. But then I realized when I talked to Dr. Shaw that, you know, I needed to keep battling and fighting this. And if it's not the second doctor or the second thing you try to do to help yourself, go the third time, go the fourth time. Don't give up, because you're going to be able to get through it. You're going to be able to do it. But the first step is to realize you need help. You can't do this on your own. And don't feel any shame or embarrassment or that you're weak or any of that stuff, because like I said, it's mostly strong people that suffer with this illness. And it is an illness, and it can be treated and it can be dealt with, and you can get through it, and you will get through it.
I also hear from a lot of people that it's at the times where they need the help the most, where for whatever reason is the least likely time they'll reach out for help. Their brain is telling them that they don't deserve help. They should just lie down and sleep and that type of stuff. And meanwhile, also, there's people around them. I suppose your mom, I imagine that your mom knew that there was things going on in your life, and she was probably desperately wanting to help. I know that because of other experiences. And It must have been a great sense of relief for her that day where you said, Mom, I need help. She'd probably been hoping that you would ask her that question. By sharing your experiences like this and sharing your story, it really is important. And I hope that people hear that message. Ask for help. The people around you want you to get help. They want to help you find help, but you have to take that first step by seeing that you need it. I think you've kind of answered this already, but how is your journey going now? How's it going today? Is there room for optimism, and how are you feeling?
Well, for sure, there's lots of room for optimism. I mean, I'm doing great. Like I mentioned to you before when we discussed it, I mean, you and I had a couple of great conversations before today, and we've talked about it a bit today, but it's going to be a battle day to day. I'm going to battle this thing and probably battle for the rest of my life. It is an illness, and it's something that I got to deal with, and I got to stay on top of it, and I got to manage by using my skills. But I'm doing great. I mean, I have up and down days, just like everybody else. And that's what I mentioned before, is there's everybody's going to suffer with things. There's stress in life. There's things that happen in life that are going to get you down, and there's going to be peaks and valleys, but you got to stick with your program and your skills that help you get through those days. And that's something that I've learned. You know, not every day is going to be great. There's going to be some bad days, and there's going to be some great days. And you got to find a way to navigate through those. And the way I do that is using my skills of listening to music, working out, going for walks, spending time with my dog. My dog is one of the best mechanisms I have. Is if I'm feeling stressed or down a bit, I just go lay beside him, and he just makes me feel 100% better and loved unconditionally. So yeah, I'm doing great. I love doing things like this, speaking about my journey and what I've been through and what I suffered with, and just tell my story. And when you guys give me a platform like this, I really enjoy it. And it's therapy for me to talk about it. The more I talk about it, the better I feel about it, and know that there's hope, and understand there's a lot of people out there that are going through it. So it helps me. So I'm appreciative that I have the ability to do that. I mean, one of the greatest stories that I ever had, everybody asked me about my hockey career, but my hockey career is just part of my life. I mean, hockey was a game I loved to play and loved doing it, and would have did it for free. I was fortunate enough to get paid money to do it, but I would have did it for free people ask me about my hockey career and what was the greatest thing in my hockey career, I have to say that because of my hockey career, I get to do things like this and have a platform to tell my story to help people. And I was doing a hometown hockey in Niagara Falls, probably about, I'd have to say now 5-6 years ago. And I could see there was a kid in line, probably in his mid-20s. When you've been through it, you can see the signs of somebody that's suffering a bit or something's not right. When you haven't been through it, it's really hard to explain to somebody what it's like to go through what a lot of us have been through with the mental health illnesses. So I just told the handler that was there with me, that was watching over me while I was doing the autograph session, that I'd like to talk to that kid after the autograph session is. So after the 45 minutes is up, I tell him to come on over, and I just asked him what was going on, and he said, Shayne, and he started talking about mental health. He knew that what I had been through because I had come out openly about it and talked about it in the news and the papers and Sports Illustrated and different things. And I just had a nice 10-15 minute conversation with him. And I said exactly what I've said to you guys, is go out and get the help you need. Make that first step. And he took off 15 minutes after we had the conversation. And a year later, I was doing another hometown hockey in Hamilton, and he was back there waiting in line to get another autograph. But it wasn't the autograph that he wanted. He got to the table. He goes, Shayne, you know what? After the 15-minute conversation we had, I went and made the first steps and got the professional help I needed, and you saved my life, because I would have been dead now. And for me, that's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, other than my kids being born and stuff like that, is that that kid came to me and told me that I saved his life. And if I can help one person not suffer with anxiety or panic attacks or depression or the thoughts of suicide and save their lives, and all these things are well worth it.
One thing you mentioned, it actually was interesting to me. So I've also heard, and there's studies that show that going for a walk is a great way to try and help relieve some stress. There's a chemical called cortisol that builds up in your system. And studies show that if you go for a walk, especially in a forest, it actually reduces the cortisol level. So that's something that I use as a coping mechanism. And it just sounds amazing. I never thought of it. I don't have a pet myself, but I bet they should do some studies about walking through a forest with a pet. I bet you that would reduce it even further.
You know what? It's funny. That's what I do. I take my dog for a walk a lot in the park with the trees and everything. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it does relax you. Just see how happy he is to be in the woods and on the run and running around. It makes you feel happy and just makes you feel like incredible. And the fresh air, obviously. And then if it's sunny out, the sun and everything else, it makes you feel a lot better. So I've tried to do that, but it's funny you mentioned that you don't have a pet, but I've had dogs almost a whole life, German Shepherds and Golden Retrievers. And now my one daughter has a cat. So we have lots of animals that have been in our lives. But when I first started really having bad thoughts about the depression, that's what I did. When you said there, just lay there and go to sleep and try to forget about everything. That's what I mean. What I did, I just stayed in the house for 12 days and laid by my dog and slept for 12 days straight, other than taking Ativan every hour and a half. That's what I was doing. So I had so lucky that we had just got a new German Shepherd. My son had actually got him, the rescue dog. But obviously, you know how it works with kids. They get a dog, but it ends up being your dog or your cat or your animal or whatever, or your pet, whatever one the kid decided to get. So it ended up in our house, but thank God it did, because the pandemic was really hard on a lot of people, and it was hard on me. But to have him here and be able to go for those walks and have him lay beside you or sit beside you and just be able to pat him, or him to come to the door, run to the door to see you when you walk in, it just makes you feel so good. So yeah, it's incredible.
So we do have a question. Did you receive support from your hockey peers after you came out with your mental health journey?
Well, you know what? Actually, when I left to get the help I needed to, I wanted to disappear right from the hockey scene. So I went off the radar for like 4 or 5 years till I got better. I mean, I wanted to be away from everybody, and hockey was already hard enough to leave the game I love to play. I definitely needed to get away from it all. And that was probably part of my anxiety and panic attacks and depression, is that I was coming to the end of my career and I didn't know what I was going to do next, to be quite honest. I played hockey my whole life, so I didn't know what I was going to do. So I needed to get away from it and completely clear my head from all that stuff and just focus on one thing. And that was getting better and getting healthy, so I could sit here and tell my story, or I wouldn't have been if I didn't. But definitely after, like, my close friends in hockey and players that I played with over the years, for sure reached out to me. Bob Gainey, one of my captains when I played in Montreal, he actually took a flight from Montreal down to Toronto here and came to see me. and actually spent an hour and a half with me and actually tried to get me to go back and play hockey. But I wasn't ready for that mentally. But he just came to see how I was doing, wanted me to make sure that I knew that he was there for me, and that if I wanted to come back and play the game, I had a job in Montreal, which was pretty cool because I was done my contract, and like I said, was out of the game at that point. Mike Keenan and then Steve Ludzig, two other guys were coaching in Florida, reached out to me and asked me to come back play in Florida, and I just wasn't ready at that point. And then with about 20 games left in the season, Guy Carbonneau, who I played with in Montreal, was assistant GM in Dallas, and he actually reached out to me with about 20 games left, and I actually went down and played 20 games down there, 17 games down there, and it was kind of nice because that's another thing that was really bothering me, that I had to leave the game I loved to play, and wasn't really on my own terms. It was because of a mental illness and the thoughts of killing myself that made me leave the game. But to be able to go down there and to play the 17 games and then be able to hang the skates up on my own terms was the big thing. So yeah, I'd say that the guys definitely supported me after they realized what I was going through. Nobody knew until after I'd gone, and then even after that, they didn't know why I'd left. I didn't tell anybody. Everybody really kind of found out when I came out publicly with it in the papers and stuff like that, and on the radio and stuff and on TV. So that's when they really found out about it. I think obviously mental health is a much bigger issue nowadays, like meaning that people understand it's a bigger issue and they're more willing to be understanding and help people with mental health. It's not the old men's league where they would tell you, come on, snap out of it, take an Advil or, put an ice bag on it. They're more understanding about it, but there's still a lot of room to go. There's a lot more stigma still there. And there still needs to be a lot more help there for everybody in the world, not just athletes or people working at big companies. It's needed to be there from the grassroots up in every walk of life. And I do Hockey Helps Homeless, and there's a lot of people that are homeless because of mental health issues. And you hear a lot of different stories. And as pro athletes and people that are working at bigger companies, we actually have more ways to turn than a lot of people that aren't as fortunate as us. So there's a lot more room and a lot more work to do just from a government standpoint also.
You got to leave on your own terms. When you finished that last, I think you said 16 games, did you feel like, okay, now I'm done. Now I can move on to a different phase of my life? That was good.
It definitely helped me be able to finish on my own terms, because I just would another layer. If I would have been able to do that and go back, I would have always thought, you know what, I wasn't able to finish hockey on my own terms. I mean, I knew I had to leave and get the help I needed to, but to be able to come back and just play a few games and to leave on my own terms was a big plus for me. But in saying that, I mean, if I wouldn't have been able to come back and play, I was fine with my decision to leave, because I knew if I didn't leave at that point, that I wasn't going to be sitting here, like I said, discussing this with you. I would have taken my own life. So no, I think I would have been able to get through it with the tools that I had and the support that I had and the doctors that I had and the coping mechanisms I had. I would have been definitely able to get through it. But no, 100% it was nice to be able to go back and play those 17 games or 15 games, whatever it was, and to be able to leave the game after and just say, you know what, I'm ready to hang the skates up and ready to go on. And actually, not a couple of years after that, I mean, I took another leave from it and just got away from everything and out of the public eye and talked about my story a bit. And then I just started doing some alumni stuff, and it's been great. I mean, I get out to meet people. I get to meet a lot of great people. I get to help with a lot of great causes. Hockey Helps Homeless, Heart and Stroke, Easter Seals. I just did an Alzheimer's thing in Edmonton. I'm doing one in Calgary. I'm doing one in Toronto. So I'm just able to get out there and give back and try to help people in different ways. And this is one of them. And it also helps me, like I said, telling my story, and helps me too with my journey.
I do have a couple more questions. How did your family react when you finally took that final step of leaving the game to get help? Were they already aware of the issue, or was it a clandestine issue that you'd effectively hid from your family?
No, I'd hid it from everybody completely. Like you said, you mentioned, and your family knows you better than anybody. So they knew there's something was wrong, but they weren't sure what it was. I don't think they understood how severe it was and how bad it was. I don't think they knew that I had thoughts of killing myself daily, but they had seen things like when I stayed up at home and was like sleeping and resting. But I had told them, I was lucky enough that I wasn't lucky that I had ulcerative colitis since I was 15, but that's what I told everybody, including the hockey team and my general manager and my teammates and my own family, that I was suffering with my colitis. And that's why I was home for 12 days and sleeping and not doing anything, not eating and not going anywhere. But that was just a complete lie. It was the anxiety and the panic and the depression and everything. But once they knew that what it was and what I was suffering with, they just wanted me to get the help that I needed to get to get the help I needed. And were there to support me and help me in any way they could. But again, until you've been through this, I mean, it's hard for people to understand, even the closest people to you. They know there's something wrong with you because they've known you for years, and they know that you're a strong person, that you've been through different things in life and got through them, but they don't realize how powerful the brain is and mental health is. So they maybe at times were a little frustrated too with me because I wasn't myself. I was cranky at times, I would say, and didn't have the energy that I normally would have. Wasn't involved with different things as much as I normally would be, but they definitely were there to support me. And it's a learning experience for them too. And I feel fortunate that I've been through it. It's a learning experience for everybody. And I think it's something that everybody has to try to understand and learn about, not just the person that's suffering with depression or anxiety or panic attacks. I think the family and the friends need to try to understand the situation and learn a little bit about it too. And I suggest that too, that if you have somebody that you think suffering with it, you can't push them too hard either. You got to be there for support and just let them know that if they want anything or they need anything or they need some help to let you know. And that's the best way you can do it. If you start pushing and trying to get them to do things that they don't want to do, it's just going to push them the other way much harder. So I think it's a good thing actually to come out today that you need to, as a friend or as a family member, you have to learn about the mental health too.
The other question, how did you handle travel when you were playing? Like, how did you handle being on airplanes and that type of stuff if you were going through this?
Ativan.
Right.
One simple answer, to be honest. I mean, I was never afraid of flying before, but when I started having my anxiety and panic attacks, and that kind of started early on because I had ulcerative colitis. So if I was having a time where I was having an issue with my ulcerative colitis, I was afraid to get on the plane because, I could go to the washroom anytime. And that's another whole story about my ulcerative colitis. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I've gone in my pants and been embarrassed and, blah, 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 blah. And my dad had a big, huge argument with one of the schools and the principal because they wouldn't let me leave to go to the washroom because I had gone once already. But when you're in ulcerative colitis and you suffer from that, you understand that if you have to go to the washroom, you have to go right then and there or you're in big trouble. And the teacher wouldn't let me go. So, I was always anxious to get on planes because if I was suffering with having a bout with it, I knew I'd have to go to the washroom about 4 or 5 times. And I was embarrassed to do that. So the anxiety was already there from that. But once I started getting into the real bad anxiety and panic attacks and depression, and then getting on a small plane and being in a closed area and not having anywhere to run to or hide, I knew I was in big trouble. So all I would do is take Ativan. And that's what I mean by the Ativan. I started taking 8 to 10. I was taking them every hour and a half, every couple hours during the day.
It's hard to imagine from my perspective. So that must have been a challenging time. So the last question, if I could sneak one more in, did you experience anxiety and panic attacks during the games themselves?
100%. I was suffering with them. I'd suffer with them during practice. I remember one day I thought I was choking on my tongue in practice and it was just sweating and clenching my hands trying to get through it to the end of practice because Pat was actually talking on the blackboard and the practice was actually over, but he was giving us a 5 to 10 minute speech about what was going on in the game and stuff like that, and the previous game and what was going to happen in the next game, and just giving us was giving us a little bit, I can't say the words on here, but he wasn't happy with us. So he was kind of giving us a blasting. And I was just thinking, please get over so I can get to the room and get to my locker and get an Ativan in my body. What happened in games, I'd be sitting on the bench, same thing. And I'd be just break into a sweat and feel like I couldn't breathe and couldn't speak. And I was just thinking, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I can't get off the bench. There's 6 minutes left in the game. So they definitely happen during games. And I just tried somehow to get through them and get to the end of the period. So I get into the locker room and go to my locker and go into the back room and hide and take an Ativan.
Well, look, we're at the end of our hour. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for being so honest and for also sharing your story and for showing people that even the strongest of us, like you, can be affected by mental health situations, and for telling us that it's so important to reach out for help, which is a message we're trying to get across to everyone. We all experience issues. Sometimes, here's my own kind of view. It's not always a choice between nobody and a professional. Sometimes you just need to talk to a family member or a friend. And if you feel the need to do that, please do that because your friends and family want to hear you. And then if you do feel like you need some professional help, we urge you to do that because you shouldn't be afraid of it. You shouldn't feel stigma. And again, Shayne, thanks so much for sending that message. We're really grateful.
Well, John, thanks very much. Like I said, again, Thank you for giving me this platform to talk to people and tell my story. And like I said, I'll keep saying it. It is therapy for me, but the most important thing for me is to tell my story so I can help somebody, because I know how hard it was on me. I know how tough how badly I struggled. And I know that I had thoughts of, killing myself, but I'm sitting here today because I actually reached out and got that help that I needed to get. And I understand that if you want to help and you get that help, there is hope, and you can get through it. You can deal with mental illness and have a normal life. So thank you for having me.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of the Adventures of the Starving Artist. So this past weekend, I played a show as a substitute with a band called Central Station. And it was an interesting mix of tunes, all original stuff, and if I had to describe their sound, it would be sort of like East Coast Canadian folk with a little Celtic vibe meets bluegrass meets blues. So a cool mix of stuff. Great genres all around, and their sound is also really cool, but not genres that I typically play, so I had my work cut out for me that way, getting used to the different feel and all that sort of thing. The other interesting part is the instrument that I was subbing in for is actually a fiddle. Now, at this point in my life, I don't play fiddle, but I do play keys, and that's what they had me play. I used my keyboard, so I had regular piano sounds, and a couple others that we liked, so I used the whirly sound on a couple of tunes, and some organ here and there as well. And it was neat, because after the show, the frontman, Joe, came up to me and said, "Listen, man, that's how I wanted that song to sound when I wrote it. It's almost like a ska vibe, and when we have the fiddle here, it doesn't quite get that sound, so really glad that you could come out." And they actually asked me to join the band full time. At this point, I don't know if I can commit to that, but it's always nice to be asked, and at the very least, it was a great show, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to play again together. One of the other fun spots, or fun things that happened at this show, because it was on the Saturday just before Halloween, people were getting dressed up. So people in the audience were all dressed up, and there was actually a costume contest for the best costume. The winner was a pair of folks who had dressed up as forks. So there were lots of good fork puns, like, fork over the prize, what the fork, etc. So that was really cool. But I actually missed the costume memo. But it's okay. It worked out. Our frontman, Joe, decided to go as Napoleon Dynamite. So he bought a costume that had the Vote for Pedro t-shirt and the glasses and whatnot. But his hair is already naturally quite like Napoleon Dynamite's. And the costume came with a wig. So I got to wear the wig, and I just threw my sunglasses on and called that a day. The bassist in our band, his name's Jason, he threw on a similar wig and some hippie sunglasses and a hippie-style shirt. And then the percussionist in the band, his name is Al, and he was playing the cajon, which is like a box drum that you sit on. So he went as Al Cajon, dressed all up like Al Capone and played the cajon. It's pretty clever, I thought. All in all, we had a great time sharing the stage with Petty Cash and Baby Richmond, two other local bands up here. All the sets were great, and considering I didn't get a chance to rehearse any of the songs, and I had to learn them all on my own in 5 days, I think it all went off all right. Saw some familiar faces, met some new folks, both in the audience and other musicians. So good all around. It was a pretty good Saturday. I hope you had a great Saturday. Have a great Halloween. By the time you hear this, Halloween will have passed, so I guess don't eat too much junk food all at once, and don't forget to brush and floss. That's all for me for now. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We're glad you're here, and we hope you're making wellness a priority. Hope you're getting something out of the podcast. And especially for people who are new, you might not know that the podcast was inspired by my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, Barnes & Noble, pretty much anywhere where you can buy books online. And this is my pitch for you to buy a copy and have a read. I think it'll enhance the experience of the podcast, and it will also help us defray some costs because it's really expensive putting out a podcast. So grab a copy if you can, and in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the show.
Move that body like we're meant to do. are we going to talk about today, John?
A theme we're going to keep coming back to is something that you often say to me, that as a dance teacher, seeing kids dance from when they're really young through to competition, that you see them lose their creativity over time. And you see this in school and everything else, where kids they try all this crazy stuff, right? And then it gets kind of beaten out of them because they can't make mistakes and all this other stuff. Well, I saw a great article. This was in online, and it's the DNYUZ media outlet. I'm not sure exactly what that is. The article says, for a better workout, think like a kid, and it was published on August 9th, 2023. I thought about you.
Yeah, it's so true. When you're working out, it's so great to just be free and out of your head. That's what I think I got most out of that article, is to stop thinking about it and be more physical. Like, think more like a child.
Just have fun.
Have fun.
So the anecdote they talk about, there's a couple. They have one guy they talk about who's a personal trainer, and he was noticing his clients were bored, and sometimes he got bored.
Yeah.
And so he started incorporating kind of gameplay into his stuff. And the other one was they start by telling a little story about a pitcher. So a baseball pitcher. He played competitive baseball in college, and then he was looking for something later. And he joined this crazy team where everyone's a dancer, right? So
they
people
all dance and
they do the splits and then pop up and go to bat, or they like do cartwheels to first base, or all this crazy stuff. And he ended up pitching better playing for them than if he went for a competitive game.
Yeah, because there was no pressure and he was just not thinking about it so much.
Yeah, or who knows why, but it was playful and fun. And the article says that for most people, movement stops being fun around adolescence, when many of them stop playing games and start doing competitive sports, right? It gets beaten out of them.
It really does. I find that happens through school. Like, I love little kids playing, and like when they're preschool, like before they're 4, watching them play and seeing how creative they are and how energetic they are and enthusiastic. And then it slowly does get beat out of them.
Yeah,
and then
just like they get taught not to be creative.
Yeah, like it actually reminds me of that party that we went to. There was this great band. I thought it was great. You thought it was a little loud because it was hard to talk.
It was loud, but I really liked the music they played.
Loved the music, and I was kind of up moving and dancing a little bit, but nobody wanted to dance.
Yeah, nobody. It was a bit of a dress-up event.
Yes,
it was a fundraising event.
But still, let's dance. Let's relax. Like, just go out there and make a fool of yourself. You just can't worry about that.
I got to admit, it never even crossed my mind. Like, it's not that I was like, oh, I can't dance. It just never occurred to me to dance. I was not thinking like a kid.
No. And I was like, come on, dance with me, dance with me. I went out and danced a little bit here and there.
Yeah, and so this trainer, for example, he started incorporating play into his workouts for his clients, things like climbing trees and balancing on railings, or crawling on all fours instead of going to the gym. And he eventually developed a workout routine that was playful. And the point here is it's play. It's not the activity, it's the attitude. And if you want to see how kids act, if you want to think, well, what is that? What does that mean? Just go watch some kids.
Mm-hmm. Like he says that they don't do repetitive, like they're not out on a bike for a long amount of time. They'll bike for a little bit, then stop and play a game and play tag. And their movement switches up a lot, which really helps.
Yeah, they'll stop and start, or they'll chase a ball and then do something else.
Yeah, because
I guess kind of pets are like that too.
Yeah, because I do remember that one time we played that bubble soccer, and it was a lot of fun. But man, you were working. I was like, breathing hard and really hot, but it was a lot of fun and funny, right? Because you get bonked even upside down and pushed around, and of course it didn't hurt because you had these bubbles, but it was so much fun.
And the other thing it said, one thing I really like here is it says for runners, think about your run as a playground.
Yeah.
Run and then, walk on a railing or climb a tree. Or it does point out, because us runners are worried about getting hurt. If it's too dangerous, like just do safe stuff. But I can imagine that. It talks also about a woman who was getting bored with workouts. And then she started doing this. And so she'd be taking her kids to school and they'd stop and do hopscotch.
Yeah, or play hopscotch.
Jump over the cracks in a sidewalk.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he was like, when you're running, do something like count every red thing you can find, or, give 5 points for every person you pass, or something like that. Like, just make it a game when you're running.
And I can't remember if we already talked about this, but it also points out that kids don't really care about making mistakes or looking silly.
Exactly.
So another thing they say is, and we've had guests on our podcast say this, they like to put music on and when they're cleaning the house, they're like dancing and moving and having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I love it. It's for a better workout, think like a kid. There's a thought. Popped up while running. It's a theme I come back to regularly, which is I had this breakthrough in wellness, and I thought I had arrived at a place where I could start to send out messages about wellness and balance. Things that work for me in case other people might want to take something from them. The thinking, though, was that it was a message that was complete. That's what I kind of thought. And so we started the podcast, and I'm talking to lots of people trying to share this message. Didn't take too long before I realized that it's actually me who's hearing the message. So many messages that are helping me clarify my thoughts and expand my thinking and better understand concepts like balance. I'm getting messages from interview guests and from co-hosts. And then I'm noticing them in the world when I do things like reading novels. And that happened really recently. And I was actually listening to a novel when I was running, Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. And there was a point where she was talking about a story. She was in an ashram in India, and there were other people there. And I'm going to try and remember, I think it might have been the Irish person who was with her, but I might have that wrong. It might have been the guy from New Zealand. And that person gave her an analogy about balance in terms of a wheel, that you're trying to get to the hub of the wheel where it's a little less hectic rather than being to the outside part that's spinning and spinning and spinning. And that made me think of a hurricane and the eye of the storm. And to me, it's a good analogy. So when in those times everything is going right and you feel balance, it's like you're in the eye of the storm and the world may be spinning like crazy a short distance from you, but you've got that calmness. You know, how long that lasts is different every time because the tendency seems to be, you know, maybe your arm just sticks out a bit or your leg just sticks out a bit and it gets caught in that wind and kind of throws you kind of to the outside initially. Because if you think about the most intense wind being right around the eye of the storm, maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you get thrown to the outside and things start to get a little windy and rainy and rough. And depending on how you react and how you do, you might get pulled into the more vicious part of the weather. But anyway, the idea is if you can keep doing check-ins and if you can be attuned to the wellness categories and the activities you need to do to try and get to balance and you can rebalance, maybe you find yourself in the middle of that hurricane again in the eye where it's a little calm. So I'm just loving the fact that it's not really me who's kind of sending out the knowledge. I'm trying to talk to people about topics that I think relate to wellness. I'm hoping that other people can take stuff from it, and I can tell you that I'm certainly taking stuff from it. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
I often mention, and I did in my book Accidentally Well, the concept of knowing the good is not doing the good. So back in ancient Greek philosophy, one philosopher said, knowing the good is doing the good. And the context is, if you know it's a good thing to do, how can you not do it?
Yeah. Why would you not do it if you know it's the right thing to do?
But we know from experience that is not the case. So another philosopher had said, no, you got to train yourself to have good habits because you don't always do what you know is the right thing to do. Why am I talking about this? It's kind of silly really, but it has to do with eating. And there's some things like I love the feeling of eating salad. I love the way it tastes. So fresh. Every time Sheila makes salad, I'm like, so fresh. It's
so like, fresh. Every time he eats it, he says like that.
But
it's like,
I never want to eat salad.
But not that. You never want to make salad.
I never want to make. So it's like,
if I don't serve salad, you won't be like, I'm going to make a salad or I'm going to eat salad. Yeah. Even if there is salad in the fridge. I have to actually take it out and put it on my plate or something. And you're like, oh, fine.
Yeah, like here I pontificate to people, eat healthy, eat all. But if Sheila weren't home, I would probably just eat junk food, like peanut butter and honey sandwiches. But like, I'm like, why? Like, what is it that makes me be like, no, I don't want to make a salad. I don't want to eat a salad. And then I eat it and I'm happy.
And it's so great and I have that exact same experience with an apple.
Right.
I'll bring the apple. So I'll bring some things with me while I'm working, just in case I get hungry and I don't have time to stop. And an apple is one of them. And I'll eat everything else I have but the apple. I don't want to eat the apple. I'll eat the granola bar. I'll eat the nuts. I'll eat anything but this apple.
You keep looking at it and you're like,
ugh.
Apple, blech.
Apple, black. And then I eat it and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good.
Every time.
Every single time I eat it and I like, it's so crispy and crunchy and it feels good on your teeth. Like it makes you feel like you're cleaning your teeth at the same time. It's just, and it's kind of filling too.
I've just gotten back into eating apples. It was a really big part of my healthy eating. The way I had started back in whenever, having seen a nutritionist, she included healthy snacks during the day. And so at 10 o'clock every day, I would have an apple in the morning. I've switched things up a bit, but still, luckily for me, my work puts out fruit, which is a fantastic idea. Like if you have a place of business, think about putting out some healthy apples or something else for your staff. It makes a big difference to me. And I feel like they care because they're giving me healthy food.
Yeah, it's so great. Makes you feel good and it tastes good and healthy.
I know that this is probably more imagination than science, but as soon as I started eating an apple every day, and you hear the expression, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, I started eating an apple a day and I did that for a long time, like almost every day for some years. And I rarely got sick.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know if it's now psychosomatic, but then I fell off it. I tried different, first of all, I just wasn't watching what I eat very well. And then I was still eating an apple, then I wasn't. But more recently, I started it back into it again. And like you, it just I don't look at it. It's not sexy. Like, I want it. But once you get it, you clean it, go back to your desk, you start to eat it. It's like, wow, this is like bursting with flavor.
So good. Yeah. And right now it's apple season. So I'm going to get back into eating apples.
That's one thing though. There's only some that I like probably about half of them. I like the ones that are kind of more on the sweeter side. Things like Gala, Delicious, Fuji. Those are the kind of ones I like more so than the sour ones or the...
Yeah, like Granny Smith apples. Those are sour.
Are those the green ones?
Yeah, those are the green ones. Usually,
and there's some like, are they Macintosh? No, which are the ones that are really round and they've got a bit of a sourness to them too. Anyway, I just think it's funny that we have these foods that we know we like, that are really healthy, that make us feel good, and yet time and again we're like, I don't want that.
I know.
Knowing the good is not doing the good. Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And it's sign-off time. It's Sheila here with Elise and John. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
I had a fabulous week. The weather was really nice. And I went to Toronto this weekend. So I went to Toronto to visit one of my students, and I went with her mother. And we saw her apartment, which was lovely, and got to enjoy downtown Toronto because she lives right downtown Toronto. And then we went to a drag show Saturday night. So that was the first time I've ever gone to a drag show. And I was really surprised at how close the performers were. It's just like kind of a small theater, like not a theater, but a small bar with this stage. And they're just like right there. They're so close to you. And they come right out and walk around and talk to you and talk to the people and then go back up. And so it was quite an experience. That is what's new with me. What about you, Elise?
Oh, that sounds like a fun experience.
It was.
I have survived Halloween week, which is Halloween week.
Yeah.
So glad that is done. It was a great time, but it was a lot of high energy. And we also had our first snowfall up here in Owen Sound. Yes, was not ready for it. I think it snowed for 2 days. We got maybe 3 centimeters that accumulated.
Oh my.
That is crazy.
I'm in shock. I don't even know what to say.
I know. We weren't ready at all. Fortunately, it melted because this weekend we needed to do some things in the yard, like get rid of some leaves. So I'm glad that it melted and we were able to do that. I'm not quite ready for the snow, so it can hold off for a little while. How about you, John?
The thing about having a place that you rent out and you have it on these services where people can just parachute in and say, I want it. That just happened to us. All of a sudden, we thought we were going to have our condo in Collingwood for all of November and we were going to try and rent it out for, say, mid-December. And boom, it was rented out and now someone's there for a month and possibly longer. So that's just a weird thing to get used to. I was really looking forward to spending a lot of time in Collingwood, but I guess we'll have to do some hiking around here instead. But what I wanted to talk about this week was a whole bunch of guests, at least 3 or 4, when I asked the question I ask every guest at the end of an interview, say they want to read literature. And I kept saying, yeah, I want to get back into reading literature too. And I never did. And then we heard that whole segment a little while back about library cards, and you can listen to audiobooks free at the library.
Life changer.
So for the last month, even longer, I've been listening to one book after another. It's been amazing. It really changes my outlook. And I just recently finished The Book Thief. Wow, what a book that is. It just gave me so many things to think about. So I'm really enjoying that. And, you know, having said that I was going to get back into reading and thinking that would be a benefit, it is. So I'm really glad I've got back into reading literature. So that's it for me. You guys got anything else?
No, that sounds great. I hope that everyone in this area survives the time change, because the time went back an hour. So we did get to sleep in a little bit, but it's really early in the night and I'm already exhausted, ready to go to bed. So we'll see how this week lasts, and I hope everyone else has a safe week. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.
A quick note, because Sheila said that, is drive safely. A lot of stats say that when the time changes, that's when there's lots of accidents. So everybody be really careful out there. Let's be well together.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.